It was a notification. I was standing in my kitchen at 6:42 on a Tuesday morning, waiting for the coffee maker to finish, when my phone buzzed against the marble counter. I glanced down. Transfer completed, $18,500. For a few seconds, I simply stared at the screen. My first thought was that it had to be a mistake. Then I saw the account name. Hawthorne Consulting, LLC. My husband's company. I felt the warmth leave my face. I opened the banking app, expecting to see some explanation, perhaps an automatic transfer I'd forgotten about, or a payment we discussed. Instead, I found something much worse. There were 3 transfers. $18,500, $12,000, $9,750, all within 6 weeks. A total of $40,250. Money that had come from the savings account I had built over 11 years. Money I had saved for the future. For our house. For emergencies. For the life I thought we were building together. I heard footsteps behind me. Morning, Claire. I locked my phone. My husband, Daniel, walked into the kitchen wearing his navy dress shirt and gray slacks. He looked completely normal. That somehow made everything worse. Morning, I whispered. He kissed my forehead and reached for the coffee. You okay? I looked at him. For 11 years, I had known every expression on his face. Or at least I thought I had. I'm fine. He smiled. Good. Big day. What is today? He chuckled. My meeting with the investors. I told you. He had. But suddenly I wondered how much of what Daniel told me was actually true. Right, I said. He took his coffee and walked toward the hallway. Then he stopped. Oh, Claire. Yeah. Don't move any money around this week, okay? My heart stopped. Why? He turned around casually. Cash flow stuff. I'm moving some money between accounts for a business expense. Nothing serious. I stared at him. How much? His expression changed for half a second. Then he smiled. Nothing you need to worry about. And he walked away. I stood there with my phone still in my hand. That was when I knew. He wasn't going to tell me the truth. But I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. For years, Daniel and I had divided our finances in a way that seemed reasonable. He handled the business accounts. I handled the household. Our joint checking account paid the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and regular expenses. But my personal savings account was different. That account belonged to me. Every birthday bonus, tax refund, freelance payment, and extra dollar I could spare went into it. Daniel knew about the account. He just didn't have the password. At least, that's what I thought. That afternoon, I called the bank. A woman named Melissa helped me review the transaction history. Ma'am, these transfers were authorized through your online banking profile. My stomach tightened. Could someone have accessed my account? That's possible, but we'd need to investigate. Can you tell me where the money went? She paused. The transfers went to an external business account. Hawthorne Consulting? Yes. I closed my eyes. Did I authorize them? According to our records, the transfers were initiated from your online account. My voice dropped. I didn't do that. I understand. Can you freeze the account? We can place additional security restrictions, but because the transfers were completed, we'll need to open a fraud investigation. I agreed. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me. Is there anything else unusual? Melissa became quiet. There was a login from a device we don't recognize. My pulse quickened. When? About 7 weeks ago. Can you tell me what device? She read something from her screen. Windows computer. I almost laughed. Daniel had a Windows laptop. Mine was a MacBook. Where was the login? Near your home address. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat alone in my car for 20 minutes. I wanted to cry. Instead, I started thinking. Daniel knew my birthday. He knew our anniversary. He knew the names of my parents. He knew everything about me. But there was one thing I had never told him. My banking password wasn't based on any of those things. It was based on a phrase my grandmother used to say. A phrase Daniel had heard only once. At her funeral. I had assumed he would never remember it. Suddenly, I wasn't so sure. That evening, Daniel came home carrying flowers. These are for you. I looked at the bouquet. What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion? He kissed my cheek. How was your day? Normal. He smiled. Good. We ate dinner together. He talked about his investors. He complained about traffic. He told me a funny story about his assistant, Megan. And I listened. Every word sounded rehearsed. After dinner, Daniel went upstairs to shower. I waited. Then I walked into his office. His desk was immaculate. Too immaculate. Daniel was messy everywhere else. But his office always looked like a showroom. I opened the drawer where he kept his business documents. Nothing. I checked another. Nothing. Then I noticed a small black notebook wedged behind a stack of folders. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking. It wasn't a diary. It was a list of passwords. I flipped through the pages. Email. Cloud storage. Business accounts. Insurance. Then I saw something that made my chest tighten. A handwritten note. CHGR, 2019. My initials. My grandmother's initials. And the year she died. I dropped the notebook. Suddenly, the bathroom door opened upstairs. Claire. Daniel's voice. I froze. Claire, what are you doing? I shoved the notebook back exactly where I'd found it, looking for the printer ink. There was a pause. Then he appeared at the office doorway. He smiled. The ink is in the hallway cabinet. Right. His eyes moved toward the desk. Then back to me. Everything okay? Everything's fine. He nodded. But he didn't leave. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His face changed. Just slightly. What happened? I asked. Nothing. He put the phone in his pocket. Bedroom door close. Then I returned to the office. The notebook was still there. I opened it again. This time, I looked more carefully. The initials weren't a password. They were a reference. A clue. I searched the notebook page by page. Finally, I found what they referred to. A handwritten sentence at the bottom of a page. Storage Unit 214, Old Records. My heart began pounding. We didn't own a storage unit. At least, I didn't know that we did. I took a picture of the page with my phone. Then I heard Daniel moving upstairs. I closed the notebook and slipped out of the office. That night, I barely slept. At 2:13 a.m., I heard Daniel's phone vibrate. He got out of bed. I kept my eyes closed. He walked downstairs. A minute later, I heard the front door open. I quietly followed. From the upstairs window, I watched him walk toward his car. He wasn't wearing a jacket. He wasn't carrying his briefcase. He was holding something small in his hand. A key. Then he drove away. I watched the red taillights disappear down the street. And for the first time in 11 years, I realized something terrifying. I didn't actually know where my husband was going. But the next morning, I was going to find out. Because before Daniel returned home, I had already made one decision. I was going to find Storage Unit 214. By 7:15 the next morning, Daniel was already back home. He walked into the kitchen carrying a paper bag from the coffee shop near his office. Morning. I looked up from my coffee. Morning. He placed a cup beside me. Your favorite. I smiled. Thanks. He kissed my cheek. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have thought it was sweet. Instead, I wondered where he'd been. Did you sleep okay? He asked. Not really. Me neither. He sat across from me. For one terrifying second, I thought he knew. Then he picked up his phone. I've got to head out early. Another investor meeting? Something like that. I nodded. Daniel. He looked at me. Yeah. Do we have a storage unit? His hand stopped. Only for a fraction of a second. But I saw it. No. Are you sure? Why would we have one? I found a note. What note? I shrugged. In your office. His expression hardened. What were you doing in my office? Looking for printer ink. You shouldn't go through my things, Claire. There it was. Not fear. Anger. The kind of anger people use when they're trying to make you feel guilty for asking the right question. I'm your wife, I said quietly. And I'm allowed to have private things. Of course. I smiled. You're right. He stared at me. Then his expression softened. I'm sorry. He reached across the table and touched my hand. I've just got a lot going on. I nodded. I understand. But inside, something had changed. I wasn't looking for an explanation anymore. I was looking for proof. After Daniel left, I called the number of a storage facility I'd found online. I gave them the name of our family business. The receptionist searched her system. I'm sorry, she said. I can't release information without authorization. I understand. Then I remembered the initials. CH. She paused. Could the account be under Claire Harper? My maiden name. Let me check. A few seconds passed. Yes. My stomach dropped. There is a unit. What number? Unit 214. I gripped the edge of the counter. Who has access? The primary renter is listed as Claire Harper. And secondary? She hesitated. Daniel Harper. Of course. I asked for the address and thanked her. Then I sat on the kitchen floor. For 11 years, I had believed Daniel and I shared almost everything. Apparently, he had been building a private world behind my back. And somehow, he had put my name on it. The storage facility was 20 minutes from our house. I arrived just after noon. Unit 214 was at the end of a narrow hallway. I stood outside it for almost a full minute. Then I inserted my key. The lock clicked. The door rolled upward. Inside were boxes. Dozens of them. Old tax records. Business files. Receipts. Bank statements. And one metal filing cabinet. I opened the first box. My hands went cold. They were my financial documents. Copies of my tax returns. Old pay stubs. Investment statements. Every record of money I'd saved over the years. Why would Daniel keep these? I opened another box. This one contained copies of our mortgage paperwork. Then another. Credit applications, loan documents, insurance records. And then I found a folder with my name on it. Claire Harper, personal assets. I opened it. The first page was a spreadsheet. Every account I owned, every investment, every savings balance, every property-related asset. It was all there. He had been tracking my finances. 4 years. I sat on the concrete floor, staring at the numbers. Then I noticed something strange. Some of the amounts were highlighted. I followed the dates. The highlighted figures corresponded with withdrawals from my savings account. $18,500, $12,000, $9,750. My stolen money. But the spreadsheet showed something I hadn't seen at the bank. Next to each withdrawal was a handwritten note. Deposit received. Vendor payment. Bridge financing. Those weren't random transfers. Daniel had planned them. I kept digging. At the bottom of the folder was a copy of a business agreement. The company name was Hawthorne Consulting LLC. The agreement showed Daniel had borrowed money from an outside investor. The collateral section contained a phrase that made my blood run cold. Spousal assets. My assets. Without my permission. I photographed every page. Then I heard footsteps outside the unit. I froze. Someone was walking down the hallway. The footsteps stopped. A shadow appeared beneath the door. Claire. Daniel. I couldn't breathe. He was standing outside. How had he found me? I quickly shoved the documents into the folder. Claire, open the door. I didn't answer. Please. His voice sounded different. Not angry. Afraid. I looked around the unit. There was another door at the back. I pulled it open. It led into the adjacent hallway. I slipped through just as Daniel opened the storage door. I heard him call my name. I kept walking. I didn't run until I reached my car. Friend since college. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She simply stepped aside. Come in. I spread the photographs across her dining table. She stared at them. Claire. I know. No, you don't. She pointed at the agreement. Do you understand what this means? Not completely. It means Daniel may have been using your assets to secure his business debts. My stomach twisted. Without my permission? If your signature isn't on these documents, that's a major problem. I pulled out another photograph. Look at this. Rebecca studied it. What is that? I don't know. It was a bank document. At the bottom was a signature. My signature. I stared at it. I didn't sign this. Rebecca looked at me. Are you sure? I would remember. The signature looked almost perfect. But there was one detail. I always crossed the letter T in my last name with a long upward stroke. This signature didn't. Someone had copied it. Rebecca leaned back. Then you need a lawyer. I know. And don't confront him. I wasn't planning to. Good. She took a breath. Claire, if he's been doing this for years, you need to assume he has a plan. I looked at the photographs. He does. Then we need to figure out what it is. That night, I went home before Daniel. I acted normal. I cooked dinner. I laughed when he told me about his day. I even asked about the investors. He seemed relieved. The meeting went well. That's good. We may close the deal next week. I looked at him. What kind of deal? He smiled. A big one. How big? He hesitated. Big enough that things are going to change around here. I forced a smile. How? We might finally be able to pay off the mortgage. My heart skipped. The mortgage. Eventually. He reached across the table. I've been trying to build something for us. I almost laughed. For us. Of course. I looked into his eyes. For a moment, I wanted him to confess. I wanted him to tell me he'd made a terrible mistake. Instead, he said something that changed everything. You know I'd never do anything to hurt you. I stared at him. Never. Never. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. This time, he didn't hide his reaction quickly enough. Fear. Pure fear. He stood up. I need to take this. He walked into the hallway. I waited 10 seconds. Then I followed. I stopped outside the office. The door was partially closed. Daniel was speaking quietly. No. She doesn't know. My heart pounded. A voice came through the phone. I couldn't hear the words. Daniel continued. Everything is still on schedule. Pause. Once the closing happens, I'll move the remaining amount. My blood ran cold. Then he said the sentence I would never forget. If Claire finds out before then, we're both finished. I stepped backward. The floor creaked. Daniel stopped talking. Who is there? I ran. I reached the kitchen and grabbed a glass of water just as he entered. Everything okay? I asked. He stared at me. Yeah. Who was that? Business partner. What did he want? Nothing important. I nodded. Okay. He walked closer. Claire. Yeah. You trust me, right? I looked at the man I'd loved for 11 years. Then I smiled. Of course I do. He hugged me, and over his shoulder, I saw the phone on the counter. A notification had appeared. Closing appointment confirmed. Friday, 10 a.m. I waited until he went upstairs. Then I took a picture. Friday, 3 days away. Whatever Daniel was planning, it was almost finished. But there was one thing he didn't know. The next morning, I had a meeting with an attorney, and I was taking every piece of evidence I had. The attorney's name was Laura Bennett. She spent nearly 2 hours reviewing everything. The storage unit photographs, the transfers, the forged signature, the business agreement, the bank records. When she finally looked up, her expression was serious. Claire, I need you to understand something. What? Your husband may have created a financial obligation using assets he didn't have the legal authority to pledge. Can he take my savings? Not if we move quickly. And the house. She looked at the documents. That's more complicated. My heart sank. Why? Because I found something in the paperwork. She turned a page toward me. There it was. A document I had never seen. A transfer agreement. My house was being prepared as collateral for a private business loan. And at the bottom was a signature. Mine. Forged. Laura looked me directly in the eyes. This was filed 6 months ago. I felt dizzy. 6 months. She nodded. Which means the money he stole from your savings may not have been the real objective. What was? Laura slid another document across the desk. Your husband wasn't trying to steal $40,000. I stared at the page. He was trying to take the house. Then she pointed to one final line. And according to this document, the closing is scheduled for Friday morning. I looked at the clock. It was Thursday afternoon. We had less than 24 hours. And suddenly, I understood why Daniel had been so calm. He didn't think he was stealing my money. He thought he was about to take my entire future. But Laura wasn't finished. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a document I'd never seen before. There's something else, she said. Something Daniel didn't realize he left behind. I stared at her. What is it? She turned the document toward me, and the name at the bottom wasn't Daniel's. It belonged to someone I knew. Someone who had been inside our home many times. Someone I had trusted completely. My sister. Megan. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Megan. Laura nodded. Your sister's name appears on this document. I stared at the page. It was an authorization form connected to the private loan. Megan's signature was underneath a statement confirming that the financial documents had been reviewed and that I had supposedly consented to the arrangement. My hands began to shake. That's impossible. Why? Because Megan never saw these documents. Laura studied me. Are you certain? Absolutely. I remembered every visit, every dinner, every conversation. Megan had always been the sister everyone trusted. She was the one who called when I was sick. The one who brought flowers after our grandmother died. The one who had stood beside me when Daniel and I got married. And now her name was on a document that could cost me my home. Answer immediately. That's possible. Then why would he involve her? That's what we need to find out. She pushed the document back toward me. Do not confront either of them yet. Why? Because if they're working together, they may destroy evidence the moment they realize you know. I looked at the clock. Thursday. The closing was tomorrow morning. What do I do? Laura leaned forward. You go home. You act normal. You let your husband believe his plan is still working. And you? I'm going to contact the bank, the title company, and the lender. She paused. But I need one more thing. What? The original evidence. I opened my bag. I photographed everything. Good. She smiled faintly. But there's something else. What? Your husband left evidence behind. I remembered the notebook. The storage unit? No. She pointed at the forged agreement. Look at the bottom. I leaned closer. There was a tiny notation beneath the signature. A reference number. Laura explained that the lender had attached the document to an electronic file. Whoever uploaded it had left behind a digital trail. And the trail pointed to a specific computer. Daniel's office computer. But there was more. The file had been created under a user profile. Megan Harper. I felt my stomach drop. She did it. Laura shook her head. Not necessarily. What do you mean? Someone could have used her credentials. Why would they? Because whoever created this wanted it to look like Megan approved it. I stared at her. Then I remembered something. 6 months earlier, Megan had stayed at our house for 2 weeks after a plumbing problem damaged her apartment. During that time, Daniel had helped her set up a new laptop. He'd asked her to log into several accounts. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I realized something terrifying. He may have stolen her credentials too. I went home that evening. Daniel was waiting. Where were you? Shopping. He smiled. For tomorrow? I looked at him. Tomorrow. He laughed. Our anniversary dinner. I had completely forgotten. Tomorrow would have been our 11th wedding anniversary. I thought we'd canceled it. No. He walked toward me. I made reservations. He kissed my forehead. We're going to celebrate. I smiled. That sounds nice. His eyes softened. You seem different lately. Different how? Quiet. I'm tired. He touched my cheek. Are we okay? I looked at him. This was the moment. I could have screamed. I could have thrown the documents on the table. I could have demanded answers. Instead, I whispered, "We're okay." He smiled. Good. Then he hugged me. I closed my eyes. Not because I was comforted. Because I didn't want him to see the tears. At 9:30 that night, Daniel went to bed. I waited until his breathing became steady. Then I quietly got up. I went downstairs. His office was dark. I opened his computer. Password protected. I tried nothing. Instead, I checked the desk. The black notebook was gone. My heart jumped. Daniel had moved it. I searched the drawers. Nothing. Then I noticed a small envelope tucked underneath the printer. It had my name on it. I opened it. Inside was a printed email. From Daniel. To Megan. My hands trembled as I read it. The email was dated 6 months earlier. It said, "Once the closing is complete, Claire will never know the difference. The house will remain in the family, and I'll make sure you're taken care of." I read it twice. Then a third time. I couldn't breathe. He had promised Megan money. In exchange for what? I kept reading. There was another line. "She'll blame me, but by then it won't matter." I photographed everything. Then I heard the stairs creak. I shoved the email into my pocket. Daniel appeared in the doorway. "What are you doing?" I turned around. Couldn't sleep. He stared at me. "Why are you in my office?" I was looking for a charger. He didn't move. Neither did I. Then his eyes dropped toward my hand. "You have something." My heart pounded. "What?" "Nothing." He stepped closer. I stepped backward. For the first time since I'd met him, Daniel looked like a stranger. Then his expression changed. He smiled. "Come to bed." I nodded. "Okay." I followed him upstairs, but I kept the email hidden inside my sleeve. Go to the closing. Why? Because the title company has been notified. I exhaled. Can they stop it? They're reviewing the documents. Is that enough? No. My heart sank. Then what do we do? Come to my office. I drove there immediately. When I arrived, Megan was already sitting in the waiting room. I stopped. She stood. "Claire." I stared at her. "Why are you here?" Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know what to do. I looked at Laura. She nodded. "Your sister came to me this morning." I turned back to Megan. "Did you sign those documents?" "No." "Did you give Daniel access to your laptop?" "Yes." "When?" 6 months ago." I felt my anger rise. "You knew." "No." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't understand what he was doing." She reached into her purse. "I found this yesterday." She handed me a phone. It contained messages from Daniel. Dozens of them. I read through them. He had manipulated her. He told her he was building a new business. He told her the money would eventually help our family. He had convinced her to give him access to an old email account. But the final message was different. "Don't worry. Claire won't lose the house. I only need it temporarily." Megan looked at me. I believed him. I stared at her. "I almost hated you." "I know." She started crying. "I'm sorry." I wanted to stay angry, but I could see the regret in her face. Then Laura interrupted. "There's one problem." "What?" "Daniel is already at the closing." I looked at the clock. 9:47. "Then let's go." We arrived at the title company at 9:58. Daniel was sitting in the conference room. 2 attorneys were with him. When he saw me, he went completely still. "Claire." I walked inside. Megan followed. Daniel looked from me to her. Then to Laura. His face lost all color. "What is this?" I placed the printed email on the table. "Your anniversary surprise." He stared at it. "You went through my office. I found what you left behind." He looked at Megan. "Megan, what did you do?" She stood beside me. I finally told her the truth. Daniel's expression changed. "You don't understand." I laughed bitterly. "No." I placed the bank records on the table. "I understand perfectly." The title attorney picked up the documents. "This closing cannot proceed." Daniel stood. "You can't stop this." "We absolutely can," the attorney said. "These documents are under investigation." Daniel looked at me. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing." He lowered his voice. "Claire, please." That word almost broke me. Please. After everything. I looked at him. "You stole my savings. I was going to pay it back. You forged my signature. I had no choice. You used our house as collateral. I was trying to save the business. You lied to my sister. I was trying to protect everyone." I shook my head. No. I looked him straight in the eyes. You were protecting yourself. Silence filled the room. Then Laura placed another document on the table. The lender has been notified of the fraud allegations. Daniel stared at it, and the bank has frozen the disputed transfers. His shoulders dropped. For the first time, he looked defeated. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out one final photograph. The spreadsheet from Storage Unit 214. You forgot something. He looked at it. What? You tracked every dollar I had. I pointed to the highlighted transfers. And you wrote down exactly where the money went. His face changed. I smiled sadly. You didn't leave evidence behind. You left a confession. 3 months later, the truth had completely unraveled. The investigation found that Daniel had created false documents, misrepresented my financial assets, and transferred money from my savings to cover business debts. The business collapsed. The private lender withdrew. The house remained mine. The stolen money was eventually recovered through legal proceedings. But the biggest surprise came from Daniel himself. He admitted everything. Not because he suddenly became honest. Because the evidence left him no other choice. Our marriage ended quietly. No screaming. No dramatic courtroom confrontation. Just a final conversation in the living room where we'd once planned our future. Daniel looked at me. I really did love you. I believed him. That was the saddest part. I loved you too. Can you ever forgive me? I thought about it. Maybe someday. He nodded. But I can't trust you. He looked down. I understand. I handed him the box containing his belongings. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in 11 years, I was alone in my house. But I wasn't lonely. 6 months later, I sat on my back porch with a cup of coffee. The same porch where Daniel and I had once talked about retirement. Only now, the house belonged completely to me. My savings were rebuilding. My sister and I had repaired our relationship. And I had started my own financial consulting business. Ironically, the experience that nearly destroyed me had taught me more about financial security than anything else in my life. One evening, Megan came over. She sat beside me. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't found that notebook? I smiled. All the time. What saved you? I thought about it. The evidence. She shook her head. No. What? You saved yourself. I looked at her. She continued. You could have confronted him the first day. I almost did. But you didn't. She smiled. You stayed calm. You gathered proof. You protected yourself. I looked out across the yard. Maybe she was right. The money mattered. The house mattered. The betrayal mattered. But what mattered most was that I had refused to let someone else's deception decide the rest of my life. I thought about the first notification I'd received months earlier. Transfer completed, $18,500. At the time, I thought that notification was the beginning of my life falling apart. I was wrong. It was the first warning. The first crack in a story that had been built on lies. And the strangest part? Daniel thought he had left behind evidence because he was careless. But he had actually left behind something much more valuable. A trail. A trail that led me back to the truth. And ultimately, back to myself. I took a sip of coffee. Megan smiled. You look happy. I looked around my home. My home. Not his. Mine. I am. And this time, I didn't have to pretend. Because the best revenge wasn't watching Daniel lose everything. It was realizing that after he tried to take my future from me, I built a better one without him.